The Transformers, now usually known as G1, is the original animated series from the Transformers. I remember the first time I saw this show, I'd left the theaters following the intriguing feature film Transformers from 2007, which my dad dragged me to after complaining that I was sitting inside all day watching TV and I needed to go outside, so we ended up settling on a movie somewhere in the middle. Anyhow, I watched that film and thought it was sick. I mean, I was 9 years old, and you had transforming cars shooting at each other, boobs, and piss. Also, the movie looked like it was piss. The movie is yellow as hell. I don't know what they were doing there. Anyways, following the movie, I logged into my family computer and searched up Transformers to endlessly read about the series I just saw adapted into some fine Kino. And while I knew of shows like Transformers Armada, it wasn't until I searched up the series that I realized it had a pretty rich history. So I decided to start from the start on YouTube and searched each episode by name, watching the entire series over the coming weeks. Oh, for those who weren't around on YouTube in 2007, you could just get away with flagrant copyright abuse. I remember for like a year, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy was just uploaded in whole, unedited, in what passed for pretty good quality for the time. Nowadays, I can barely get away with a 10-ish second clip. Back then, it was the Wild West. You could do whatever you wanted. Anyhow, these episodes were usually VHS rips, some recorded from the TV and some recorded from the tapes itself, with the expected artifacting. Oh yeah, I forgot, some people here may not know what a VCR is, so I'll be very condescending and explain it to you if you're young. Before streaming, there was something called DVD, and before that, there was something called the VCR that used VHS tapes, which were bricks of plastic that played movies. Anyhow, I got all the toys and whatnot and thought Transformers was pretty sweet. Now, nearly 20 years later, as a grown-ass man, I'm reviewing a children's show from the 1980s. The Transformers was a show designed to sell toys. Basically, if you make a show out of toys, then kids will want to buy those toys and will know how to personify the toys, adding play scenarios and whatnot, which will then encourage them to buy more toys. So anyhow, Hasbro, which is a big American toy company, found these things called Diaclone from Takara Tomy in Japan and planned to import them, with those toys being transforming robots, many of which would be pulled right into the Transformers line. Seeing potential, Hasbro wanted to work out ideas for a multimedia marketing experience. Hasbro, who had previously commissioned Marvel Comics to help make up background information for the G.I. Joe, was again pulled into the fold to help develop the Transformers toys into Transformers characters. Hasbro vying for a three-pronged strategy: the main show, produced by Marvel Productions, which was sort of a pronto Marvel Studios. You see, it was founded by Candace Industries, a company that produced films and medication that would sell to Marvel, who would sell to Roger Corman, who would rename the studio New World Animation before it went defunct. Anyhow, so not to confuse you all further than I need to, Marvel Productions would produce the show under its banner, then send it to a foreign nation to be produced. That foreign nation being Japan, the home of Diaclone, with the studio producing it being Toei, a big dog in animation out there. Anyhow, Marvel Comics would make the comic in tandem with Bill Mantlo and Frank Springer heading the book with the help of Ralph Macchio, not the Karate Kid, a different guy. Finally, Hasbro would work to adapt the toys from Japan to fit the story and do all the packages and whatnot. Both the comic and the TV series were intended to be miniseries, but the show and the comic proved so popular and the toys were selling so well, this would be expanded and the Transformers would have its first season, starting with More Than Meets the Eye, Part 1 through 3, which more or less work as one long cohesive narrative. The story takes place millions of years ago on the planet Cybertron, with Optimus Prime's Autobot army fighting Megatron's Decepticon army. Energon supplies on the planet are depleting, so the Autobots leave the planet in search of a new energy source. Though they're pursued by the Decepticons, while fighting in a ship battle, some meteors knock into the group and they head careening towards Earth, where they land on the side of a volcano, hibernating for millions of years. Anyhow, 4 million years later, in 1984, the volcano stirs, turning on the Autobots' computer, Teletran 1, which assigns new modern Earth transformations to the Transformers, who slowly come to. Eventually, the pair continue their war, fighting on a new planet they don't know, which leads them to an offshore oil rig where they battle and meet Spike and Sparkplug Witwicky, After the battle, the Autobots take the humans to their base, hoping to gain knowledge off the duo, and the two kind of just stick around, with the Decepticons' next plan being to get energy cubes from Burma, with Sparkplug and Bumblebee finding and checking out the mine only to almost die. The Decepticons got some energy and plan to head back to Cybertron, though the Autobots capture Soundwave's little pal Ravage and trick him into thinking they're going to hang out at a rocket base, which Megatron thinks will put them over the line to have enough fuel to get the group flying back to Cybertron. In a counter ruse, the Decepticons create decoys that break apart, so the group realizes it's all fucked. And anyway, the Decepticons are boarding a cruiser to take off back home, though the Autobots show up just in time and lead the Decepticons to crash into the ocean, with the Autobots set to head home to revitalize Cybertron with all the energy the governments of the world gave them.
That's it from Earth. Next stop, Cybertron.
Ready, Spike? It's almost time to blast off.
This trio, when it was created, was supposed to be it, hence the Autobots getting the energy they needed to fix up Cybertron. I guess the Decepticons being beaten, and as far as the Autobots now, killed as well. Of course, the series would not end here, and more was to come, but it is interesting. The natural idea was pretty much to wrap it up as a one and done and send the Autobots home while simultaneously sparing the Decepticons. The trio of episodes also feels the most like a toy commercial, giving us Autobots roll call,
Jailbreaker! Wheeljack! Ironhide, Mirage, Sunstreaker!
and giving times to numerous bots on both sides to give personalities to each toy, more or less. The voice acting on the bots is very cartoony, though this is a cartoon and it was memorable, so it worked out, helping to distinguish each bot more from the others.
The energy is ours! We can go back to Cybertron!
You fool, Starscream!
I like how Shockwave was left home and just presumably hung around for 4 million years waiting to hear back from his Decepticon buddies. Also, the fact that their names are like Wheeljack or Bumblebee is funny. Like, everyone is a futuristic hover car on Cybertron. No one has wheels and also presumably knows nothing about Earth. Along with the fact that this planet lacks bumblebees.
At least we found these, Wheeljack.
And when these run out?
Can't worry about that now. Hey, let's get back to Iacon.
I guess it was just a coincidence that they all had names that are very Earth relevant. Soundwave having a little robot pet was always cool to me as a kid, and a gimmick Transformers really dropped later, which is kinda lame. Transport to Oblivion is the premiere of the wider show, though the miniseries was considered part of Season 1 later on, so I'm going to count it here and we'll keep on going. The Autobots assume the Decepticons are dead, but decided not to leave Earth, I guess. They just retconned that idea.
Look out! Decepticon! Cliff Jumper!
Anyhow, Shockwave hopes to contact the Decepticons and manage to, with their new plan, to make a teleporter called the Space Bridge. Anyhow, the Decepticons hit a solar plant, which leads the Autobots to finding out and heading over to fight them, though the Decepticons make it off with some energy. Anyhow, Bumblebee finds the Space Bridge, but is captured and set to be the testers of the dangerous Space Bridge, with Bumblebee and Sparkplug set to be sent over to Cybertron in 3,000 astroseconds, which is some undefined unit of time. Like, is it Earth seconds, but with Astro in front of it? If so, they would awkwardly stand there for 50 minutes. Whatever. They escape and grab the other Autobots to fight, which leads to Megatron seemingly dying and Starscream taking over. Oh well, I guess Megatron lived for a little bit. This episode is like a mini version of the pilot miniseries and features some weird concepts like the Autobots not actually leaving Earth, despite them saying they were going to at the end of the episode. Don't worry, it's not explained. The Space Bridge plot is an abridged version of what we saw with the spaceship in the last episode. Again, Shockwave hanging out for 4 million years to hear from Megatron will never not be funny to me. I do think the setup is decent enough, but if this was episode 10 and not episode 2 or 4 or whatever, I think it would be called filler. Episode 5, Roll For It, is aptly named since Chip is in a wheelchair. Megatron is on Cybertron, hoping that Starscream isn't just screwing everything up on Earth, with the group planning to attack the antimatter laboratory in 5 billion astroseconds, or 158 astro years, which I googled is about 43 years in human time. Megatron must have just miscalculated, I guess.
Meet me in the desert near the laboratory in 5 billion astroseconds.
Anyhow, Spike has a friend working at the antimatter lab, which is set to be attacked in 2027, presumably. This friend is Chip, and he gets access to the antimatter lab's computer, and then they try warning about the attack, though Megatron brings in a strike team on the lab as Starscream has a second team attacking the aircraft factory. The Decepticons get the antimatter energon they were after, but Optimus manages to get it overloaded and blows it up, beating the Decepticons. Chip is a new buddy of Spike and leads to this weird episode that again follows the formula of the Decepticons attempting to get energon and the Autobots counterattacking. With that said though, I thought the battle in the factory was memorable enough. Chip manages to hack Prowl, which seems like something that would be impossible back in the day, like what did he connect to Prowl's Bluetooth? The antimatter is just energon, but not. Same idea as always. I feel like this episode had a vain idea about adding more humans that must have just fell through because that idea is never really touched again after a few episodes. Divide and Conquer is the 6th episode and sees the world's factories trying to build anti-Decepticon weaponry, with Decepticons attacking one of these labs that happens to also feature special guest star Chip. Optimus and Spike are still looking for the Decepticons' pesky space bridge when they get a distress signal from Chip. Optimus is shot and blows up, being critically wounded. The other Autobots pull up, but the Decepticons are already dipping, with the Autobots entering a race to save Optimus. Anyhow, the only way to save Prime is with the Cosmotron, which is a MacGuffin only found on Cybertron. Luckily, Chip found the space bridge on the computer and head there to find the one in Wheeljack's lab, which has been under lock and key by the Decepticons for 4 million years, but somehow is being maintained or whatever. A group of Autobots take the chip to Cybertron, but they are confronted by the Acid Rain Seekers. Chip tells them to keep moving, so they do, and they make it back to Earth to save Optimus. Then Optimus naturally beats the shit out of Megatron. This episode goes back to Cybertron, and honestly, I love this planet. Toei did such an amazing and intricate idea for the design, and honestly I would give my left nut to have one of these backgrounds of Cybertron hang on my wall. It looks genuinely really good for something designed to sell action figures. The Acid Rain Seekers show up briefly and have definitely been a fan favorite bot, despite their relatively limited screen time. I find them memorable, but the colors they choose kind of hurt my eyes, which I guess makes them more memorable because I remembered them for nearly 20 years. The goal of this show is to get back to Cybertron, so I love how utterly simple it is for these guys to do just that in the early show. Also, the fact that nothing has changed in 4 million years is so funny to me. Wheeljack says, "I got a Cosmotron in my lab," and they decide to make an interplanetary mission for it. At no point is anyone like, "Bro, it's been 4 million years. Are you sure that's still there?" Like, would that thing even work at that point? I know I'm using a bit too much logic on this cartoon, but to put it in perspective, humans have only been on Earth for around 200,000 years, so the Cosmotron has been sitting operational for 20 times the total of all human existence and still works as intended, and was untouched by other Autobots, Decepticons, or whatever else might have happened to it over the last 4 million years. Anyways, I like this episode. Fire in the Sky sees Starscream's former best friend, Skyfire, revived from the ice, with him crash landing on Earth, preceding the Autobot-Decepticon war, not really knowing what is happening when he comes to. Anyhow, Starscream tries manipulating Skyfire into thinking that the Autobots are the bad guys, though eventually Skyfire learns the truth and turns to join the Autobots.
Who orders from you? I am an Autobot now.
Though during the last conflict with the Decepticons, Skyfire and Starscream get into a dogfight, with Skyfire getting lost in the ice once again, with the Autobots all sad and stuff that he sacrificed himself. This episode starts on Spike being really excited that it's snowing in the desert, which is all well and good, but man, the global implications of the horrible climate change that would need to happen to not only get the desert cold, but also get enough moisture for snow to form in the desert must have been devastating to the local ecosystem. None of those lizards are still alive. Like every creature in that desert is pretty much instantly killed, but Spike doesn't care because it's kind of neat that it's snowing. This was my favorite episode as a kid. Skyfire is just this big dumbass, but we love the boy. Skyfire is homies with Starscream until Starscream went nuts during the war, a tale as old as time, I guess. No, but I actually like this idea. You kind of got this nice guy robot that was friends with Starscream when he was a nice guy before the war. We also see the progression of Starscream being a normal guy into this crazy loud thing he becomes throughout this episode.
Skyfire and I were separated. I circled half the globe searching for him. Show yourself!
Here I am!
You shall pay for your treachery!
I also think this is one of the few episodes that has something of an arc and stakes. This one stood out to me as a kid, and I remember watching it a lot back in the day. I even bought a Skyfire or a Jetfire toy. For some legal reasons, they changed his name back in the day. No idea why, and honestly, there are only really theories on why exactly they changed his name. SOS Dinobots is the first episode where we meet a new breed of Transformers, the gimmick kind. These get bigger as time goes on, but this is the first time the creators came up with a gimmick. Anyways, the Autobots think the dinosaurs are cool, so Wheeljack decides to make his own dinosaurs to beat off the Decepticons.
Meet Dinobots.
This doesn't really work because the Autobots are attacked by the Dinobots. Well, the Decepticons attack a Diam for Energon as always, and the Autobots show up with their new Dino pals, though eventually the Decepticons see victory, with the Autobots turning off the Dinobots and then bringing them back online, where they proceed to thrash the Decepticons. The Dinobots are a wild early inclusion. Feels like such a post-shark jumping concept that was in the early show. Though dinosaurs are cool, was the thinking behind this episode, and I'm inclined to agree. I think it's kind of funny all the Autobots get really gassed about dinosaurs, like it becomes some special interest to the Autobots, so they decide to make some themselves. It's strange but kind of funny.
Dinosaurs, eh? They must have been ugly suckers.
I'd sure like to know more about them. As would I.
Meanwhile, the Decepticons are planning on stealing Energon unchallenged. Since the Autobots are so gassed about dinosaurs, they kind of forget about the Decepticons for a bit. It's such a bizarre episode since really the whole conflict comes to a head because the Autobots are so distracted by dinosaurs that the Decepticons had time to become super powerful. Strange episode, but I like the Dinobots, and it's kind of a fun concept at least. Fire on the Mountain follows the Decepticons taking an ancient temple over since it holds the Crystal of Power somewhere in Peru. The town folks get scared when the Decepticons bring the mountain to life using the energy. Meanwhile, the Autobots find Skyfire in the Arctic, and the Autobots head to Peru to look into this temple business. Anyway, satisfied with the energy or whatever, the Decepticons are going to leave, and while they do it, just to be douchey, they blow up a mountain to cause a rock slide.
A little going away present.
That will, in theory, bury the town. The Autobots stop that, and the Decepticons eventually return, and there's a fight over the temple, with the Autobots, of course, succeeding at their quest to beat up Decepticons. I like the setting, even if it's a bit random. The mountain fight over a MacGuffin is basically just the Michael Bay Transformers formula that he made later on. Thundercracker is kind of pissed at Megatron and Starscream, though this plot kind of goes nowhere as we move forward. I thought it was kind of a good character arc for him, if very brief and not reoccurring. Also, Spike makes his friend Luisa a village woman. They do nothing with that plot either in the episode or later. There is a moment that half implies that Starscream has little to no connection to Skyfire, which as we know is not true, with the duo being pretty close before the war, as we know. I do think this episode looks really nice and honestly has some really fun action set pieces. It's okay, and I feel like it's kind of set up for the more modern Transformers formula of Autobots and Decepticons meeting in an exotic land to fight over a MacGuffin that does one thing or another, rather than just meeting in the desert to scrap for a couple of purple cubes like most of these episodes are. War of the Dinobots sees the Autobots decide to bring the Dinobots to investigate a falling meteor, since I guess dinosaurs were killed by a meteor, so perhaps Grimlock, a Transformer that's like 3 months old, may have some insight. I don't know. Wheeljack also builds a couple more Dinobots to add to the herd, while Soundwave sneakily tries to find the Dinobots' weakness. Anyhow, the meteor makes the Dinobots crazy and they fight the Autobots, including Optimus, as the Decepticons start harvesting the meteor for Energon. Wheeljack sends off the new Dinobots to fight off the old Dinobots. Eventually this leads to Grimlock turning and working with the Autobots again, and then they beat up Megatron or whatever. This episode definitely felt like a Toy Line Edition episode. Like, they ended up having 5 Dinobot toys, so they ended up needing to put out another episode to make more. I will say dinosaurs have traditionally been popular with kids, so it makes sense why they did this. I do think after the second attack on the Autobots by Grimlock and company, perhaps it was time they euthanized the Dinobots. That's what I would do, but I respect Optimus's commitment to rehab these bad apples. The Ultimate Doom is the second 3-part episode of the Transformers, told across 3 parts, known as Brainwash, Search, and Revival. The Decepticons are off the Malabar coast, with the Autobots likewise taking a vacation to India to stop them. This is when we meet the human villain, Dr. Arkville. Meanwhile, at the Autobot headquarters, Soundwave sent out Rumble and Ravage. Sparkplug is captured and brought to Decepticon headquarters, then is brought back, but mind-controlled, with Sparkplug asking Spike to defect and join the Decepticons with him. Anyhow, in India, Megatron uses the space bridge to bring Cybertron into Earth's orbit. Dr. Arkville's brainwashing device is starting to affect a bunch of humans as the Autobots lose a skirmish with the Decepticons moving Energon to Cybertron to continue their war while using human slaves to transport the Energon. A strike team of Autobots head back to Cybertron with Spike to stop this bullshit and hopefully save Sparkplug, with the Autobots learning hypnosis is being used, with Wheeljack the MVP himself making a disruptor that shorts out the hypnosis, freeing the human slaves. Anyhow, the Autobots fight the Decepticons one more time, this time shooting their energy stockpile, creating a blast so strong that it moves Cybertron out of Earth's orbit, and I guess canonically bringing it back into its old orbit, or at least an orbit that it can sustain, though not interfering with Earth. This also seemingly kills Megatron, though. We know how that usually goes. This trilogy is ambitious, that is for sure. One problem is how quick the resolution is, and frankly, it's nonsense bordering on parody. Wouldn't a blast so strong it could push a planet out of Earth's atmosphere, just obliterate both planets down to atoms?
It's working! Cybertron is moving out of its orbit!
There are some natural disasters, to be fair, but it is still less than one would expect. The White King of India did the newfangled solar panels for his son early on, and for no reason at all. Autobots know Decepticons will fuck with this, so they pull up to India with no explanation. Dr. Arkville is a mad scientist that works with Megatron. Same plot the miniseries the GoBots had, pretty much, though technically GoBots was first to market.
The pulsar generator emits an electromagnetic signal on the exact frequency of human thought. All humans will be turned into my obedient slaves.
Watch. Whatever you're doing, the Autobots will stop you.
Silence, miserable flesh creature! You are to be the first of a new breed. A breed of slaves.
Anytime they go to Cybertron, it becomes way more impressive. Later on, as the show goes on, especially in its 3rd season, they go there a lot more. But at first, it was sweet every time they did it. Since a lot of the early episodes prefer to just recycle the Decepticons find energy plot over and over again in this first season, I give it shit. But as far as it goes, this episode is pretty ambitious, and I kinda enjoy it. Countdown to Extinction is the follow-up to the Ultimate Doom trilogy. It sees Optimus Prime and the gang doing their civic duty to help fix all the problems of Cybertron entering Earth's orbit. The Decepticons are feuding with Starscream, doing his own thing with Dr. Arkville, who has created a device that could destroy the Earth. Starscream comes up with a plot that involves blowing up the Earth with this weapon, the blast of which could potentially cause Cybertron to gain a shit ton of energy and revitalize it, with Starscream its ruler since Cybertron is still nearby, kind of floating back towards its own orbit, I guess, however the fuck that works. Anyhow, the Autobots are attacked by the Decepticons and eventually learn from the prisoner of war Laserbeak the whereabouts of Dr. Arkville's lab. Arkville thinks Starscream is going too hard and tries stopping him before being injured in the process and becoming a RoboCop-looking dude.
As to check it, Doctor.
And how do you propose I get there? No! On my roller skates?
Of course, Megatron shows up and the group start to tussle. Eventually, Megatron stops Starscream's plot, mostly out of spite. Then Optimus and Megatron team up to stop the device, which blows up near Starscream, grounding him near Megatron, who takes him off to his base. I like the ending because the Autobots have no idea what will happen to Starscream, but whatever it is, they think it's hilarious. Torture, murder. They don't know what's gonna happen, but they think it's gonna be funny.
What do you think Megatron's gonna do to Starscream?
Nothing gentle, I would say.
Dr. Arkville being a turncoat is a bit random, since in the last episode he was trying to enslave all humans, though I guess it is the methods, since I think he wants to be the ruler of the world or whatever. I love Starscream in this original show, so the way they use him in this is just brilliant. The Doctor turning to RoboCop was very 80s, and overall I like this one as a soft conclusion to the Ultimate Doom arc. A Plague of Insecticons shows the origins of Insecticons, which is sort of the Decepticons' answers to the Dinobots, though, like, insects are a bit weaker and less cool than dinosaurs. Anyhow, in Bali, the Insecticons are just kind of sitting around with the insects eating everything around. Of course, the Autobots go to investigate, with the Decepticons realizing that these Insecticons are Decepticons that would end up in insect forms. Anyhow, the Insecticons can clone themselves or whatever, so the Autobots fight the group, while the non-insect Decepticons hit a refinery to get some Energon cubes. Anyhow, that goes south, as always, with the Insecticons deciding to feed on energy before it's all lost, and Megatron fighting the insects. I liked the Insecticons growing up and had a couple kickback toys as well as a shrapnel. Never had Bombshell though. The Insecticons also look really cool, admittedly. This episode, besides the toy commercial elements for the new Decepticons, is pretty formulaic, with Decepticons on the quest to rob a refinery. Wow, we haven't seen that 10 times this season. Anyhow, this episode plays like a bigger toy commercial than most, with the Insecticons doing attacks on the Autobots, then loudly declaring the move they did. They can also clone themselves, perhaps encouraging kids to buy several Insecticons. This may be the reason I had kickback twice. I don't know. I found them at my grandma's house. They were my uncle's from when he was a kid. There's a lot of animation issues with this episode, like here where the Insecticon logos keep coming and going. Overall, Heavy Metal War introduces some of the coolest Decepticons and introduces another set of gimmick bots. Anyhow, Megatron and the gang make a new group of Decepticons, the Constructicons. Megatron challenges Optimus to an honor duel. Winner stays on Earth and loser goes into exile. For some reason, Optimus takes this deal. Anyhow, Megatron also created a device that gives him special abilities of all of his Decepticons. This would lead him to thrashing Optimus in their fight. Optimus and the Autobots prepare to abandon Earth to let humans to their fate since Optimus lost.
Megatron has beaten me according to Cybertron law. To violate that law would destroy our honor.
But for no reason at all except to sell Constructicon toys, Megatron sent the Constructicons to the Ark. The Dinobots were of course left behind by the Autobots and fight the Constructicons, who merge into a giant Mega Transformer, Devastator. Teletran 1 shows Optimus that Megatron cheated, and the Autobots return and they help the Dinobots best the OP robot Devastator. Anyhow, the Autobots then herd Devastator and the other Decepticons into a lava pit, presumably murdering them in a mass grave until, of course, we learn they survived.
Nail 'em, guys! Turn 'em to scrap!
This episode's cool because it creates a combination Transformer, one of the most iconic gimmicks in Transformers history. Though the episode is also kind of dumb. Like, what was Megatron's plan? Why not just use the power merge to murder Optimus, then pick off the Autobots in a brute attack with his giant Constructicons? Plus, did they just figure Devastator would make it to Autobot headquarters unchallenged? It's just weird. That said, it has good action and art, and ending with the mass grave was kind of funny, if a bit sadistic. The music from the theme song to background music in this show is surprisingly decent. The theme song, I think, is fairly iconic, and while it is improved over time with more dramatic takes later on, there's a reason this song largely resonated with the show, and it's mostly due to how catchy it is.
The Transformers, more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons.
It has some robotic elements, which is a little cheesy, but overall it's pretty fun. Artistically, I think the crew at Marvel and the TV casts from Toei did a pretty good job, with most of the bots being interesting at least, and with the anime-inspired look, probably stemming from Toei's anime influences, putting the show together looking pretty good. Many of the bot designs are based on the toy line that adapted from Diaclone. For example, you have Battle Convoy, who was later adapted into Optimus Prime. It's mostly one-for-one between the lines, though infamously weak Transformers like Ironhide in the original line had a figure with him to show why the figure lacked a head and stuff. Since it's like a weird workstation mech suit thing, it's not actually a guy. The 1984 toy line started off with 25 Transformers. They lack the details of today's toys, but you can largely see how the toy became the screen character. I think the classic worst figures had to be Ratchet and Ironhide for the aforementioned reasons. This just looks like shit in the context of the show. With Soundwave being my favorite as a kid, I had him and thought he was so awesome, and Optimus Prime also being pretty strong. Though on the smaller figures, I also really like Jazz Prowl and the Seekers. One of my favorite parts of my GoBots video was when I talked about the robot designs. There are a lot, so I'll simply say good design or bad design for each one. Optimus Prime was fire, Wheeljack fire, Bumblebee meh, Prowl fire, Trailblazer whack, Jazz fire, Ratchet fire, Blue Streak weak recolor, Sideswipe meh but cool car, Ironhide meh, Mirage cool, Brawn dogshit, Gears meh, Windcharger weak, Sunstreak stupid, Hound fire, Huffer hot take but fire, Cliffjumper derivative of Bumblebee but pretty cool anyways, and I like red better than yellow, so I like him better than Bumblebee. Holler, I have no opinion. Roller is a Roomba. Skyfire is big and very Japanese. Grimlock is cool. Slag is slightly less cool. Sludge is cool though. Snarl's cool. And Swoop is the best Dinobot. Megatron, hot take, not good. Starscream is the GOAT. Thundercracker is the GOAT but less cool. Skywarp is a better recolor than Thundercracker. The Acid Rain Trio hurts my eyes. Soundwave, arguably the biggest GOAT of the herd. Laserbeak is pretty badass. Rumble's cool. Frenzy is Red Rumble. Ravage is badass. Shockwave is shit. Reflector is cool in concept at least. Shrapnel is amazing. Bombshell is cool. Kickback is cool. The Insecticons kick ass in general. Hook, Scrapper, Bombshell, Longhaul, Scavenger, and Mixmaster are all clunky, but together they make Devastator, who's a big robot, and I like big robots, so I think he's dope. There are some minor background bots too, but I don't care about them, and most of them are just recolored Seekers. That's my limit. I won't talk much more about them. Other things I love are the bumpers, which indicate who is the star of what scene that we are transitioning into. And the animation, though occasionally messy, is mostly pretty good. The action isn't always great, though is occasionally really solid and creative, and I think that largely comes down to the fact that this show definitely follows a formula. Each episode is just Decepticons trying to find energy, trying to steal it, the Autobots fail to stop them, conflict then escalates, then the Autobots win the day. Later, the formula of Season 1 becomes a little less utilized, but to start, it's something that the season relies on heavily, which I think in a way can damage enjoyment of the show, but the voice acting is dynamic and the show is quick and easy to watch, though I will concede, for a show with so much lore, it does occasionally fail at its own continuity, as we kind of discussed a couple times here. Anyway, that's Transformers Season 1. Eventually we'll do Season 2 or whatever.